All right, chemists, we're heading towards the end of the alchemy unit. Now, we've learned that we can't turn a penny into gold directly. So now let's classify some substances to see if we can make something that's like gold. All right, so in class, what you did is you looked at a bunch of different substances to see if they would dissolve or conduct electricity. Now, what does it mean to dissolve? Well, this means to disperse evenly into another substance. And an example of this would be something that you might have seen. So, for example, like salt in water. This is something you're probably a little bit familiar with. Now, conductivity, you talked about a little bit in physics. So it's a property that describes how well a substance will conduct electricity. So will a substance allow electricity to flow through it? So we know, for example, like copper wire that's used for electronics is conductive. It allows electricity to flow, whereas something like sand does not. So generalization about substances that do not light up the bulb. So when dissolved, now we're not looking at solids now, we're just looking at things that are dissolved. C12H22. The sugar didn't conduct. Water itself did not conduct. And the ethanol did not conduct. Okay, a couple of things here, and I'm sure we'll touch on this in class. Water in and of itself is not conductive. So if you are in a if you are in a pure water and you get hit by lightning, you'll be fine because the water doesn't conduct electricity. However, the lightning will probably hit you instead of the water, so you're in trouble anyway. But water in and of itself does not conduct electricity. And water with sugar or ethanol in it also does not. Well, what do we notice about all of these substances? I'll give you a second to think about it. Yeah, that's right. They are all composed of nonmetals. Right? So things that are made of nonmetals when they're dissolved in water do not conduct electricity. Now, what about the ones that do light up the bulb? Okay, well, there are the solids. And this was aluminum and copper. And then there were the solutions, the dissolved in water. And this was the sodium chloride, the calcium chloride, and the copper sulfate. Well, let's just look at the solids first. What do we notice about the solids? That's right, they're metals. And when they're dissolved in water, these are made of metals and nonmetals combined, so these are the ionic compounds. Now, I want you to be careful with this. It's not because solutions of ionic compounds don't conduct electricity because they have metals in them. They conduct electricity because they're made of ions, positive and negative charges. So the Na plus and the Cl minus are equally important in the conductivity. It's just that it has to have a charge. So here's a nice handy-dandy little flowchart. And I do want you to copy this down except for the bottom. So when you ask yourself, this is just a flowchart, does a substance dissolve? And then if it's yes, you follow the yes branch. Then you ask, does it conduct? And then you can categorize compounds in these four ways. Just by asking, does it dissolve and does it conduct? Well, you see you have nicely organized little patterns here. So take a minute, copy this down. Okay. So, well, let's do a couple more definitions. Soluble describes a substance that is capable of being dissolved in another substance. So like, again, I keep coming back to sodium chloride. Table salt in water is soluble. Insoluble describes a substance that is incapable of being dissolved in another substance. Sorry, my handwriting is really bad. I've been doing a bunch of these lectures today. All right, so let's do examples. An example here is NaCl in H2O. And an example here would be oil in water. So wrapping up, how can substances be sorted into general categories? Well, not all substances dissolve in water. And that's a good thing because otherwise water would just dissolve all of us. Not all substances conduct electricity. And solid metals and metal-nonmetal compounds dissolved in water are the ones that do conduct electricity.